Hello, hello. Welcome back to Get Organized at Work podcast. If you listened to last week's episode, we kicked off January talking about stewardship as a leadership skill, leading what's already in your care with intention instead of control. And this week, I want to build directly on that idea because one of the biggest things leaders are stewarding every single day, often without realizing it, is decision making energy. So today we're talking about decision fatigue and why it shows up so quickly for leaders, and most importantly, the systems that actually reduce it. Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Before we dive into the episode, I want to just put a plug inside this episode for the community. So inside our podcast community this week, we're going deeper into identifying over-engineered systems, simplifying decision-heavy workflows, and designing systems that support real capacity, not ideal conditions when everything's going perfect. So we've been having a really thoughtful conversations last week around consistency versus capacity, reducing guilt around falling off, and designing systems that will help leaders return instead of restarting all the time. So if you're craving a place to think about this stuff with other leaders who get it, that's exactly what our community is for. So if you're interested in joining, check out the link in the show notes or in the description below. I'd love to have you and love to have you inside. I'm having so much fun with it this year because I've added the fact that we're doing daily posts now for you to interact with and engage. So if you're inside the community, you should be getting emails from me on Fridays, kind of summarizing what happened in case you missed anything. And then you also should see notifications about posts. I noticed that sometimes when I send messages to all community members, those work. But if I'm just posting, you don't always get a notification. So if you're like, oh my gosh, there's been content last week, I didn't know. Go check out the app. I'll put a link for community members inside the show notes so you can get back into the swing of things. Don't miss out on all the awesome content that we're putting inside the app for this year. All right, let's get into the episode. So, what is decision fatigue? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the mental exhaustion that comes from making too many decisions, especially small ones, over and over again. Leaders experience this constantly. You probably are familiar with thinking, okay, what should I work on first? How should I respond to this email? Do I deal with this now or later? What system do I check next? And none of these decisions feel big on their own, right? Like throughout the week or the day, you're like, okay, I can make these decisions. But collectively, they drain your focus, patience, and energy. And I want to talk about one really important reframe because we're being kind to ourselves this year in 26. There are a lot of hard things going on in the world. We don't need to be another person, making us feel bad. Decision fatigue isn't a personal weakness. There's nothing wrong with you. It's probably just a system design issue. We've got to have a plan or a way to handle all of these decisions and maybe actually make it so these decisions are pre-made for us. So let's talk about why stewardship matters here, our global theme for January. And this is where last week's conversation on stewardship really comes back in. Stewardship asks the question, what inputs do I need to protect so I can lead well? And one of the most critical inputs for leaders is having clarity. When clarity is missing, leaders are forced to decide on the fly, reevaluate constantly, often holding too much in their head or writing a note, I'll deal with this later. And that's exhausting. And it leads to being reactive, procrastinating, and ultimately burnout, which is what we're trying to avoid or prevent. So good leadership systems don't necessarily eliminate decisions. I mean, that's what you're there for as a leader, right? But they can reduce unnecessary decisions and help it make it easy for you to decide the most important or imperative ones. All right, now that we've talked about decision fatigue, let's talk about the four main types of decisions, actually three, three types of decisions that drain leaders. So In my work, this is my observation, what I see leaders getting drained by these three main categories. Number one is prioritization decisions. The questions we're asking or being asked are, what should I be working on right now? And without a system, this decision gets made multiple times a day. What's the top priority? What are the priorities? What's next? And this is why leaders feel busy and not strategic. You're kind of like always in planning mode and never in like, oh, vision mode. Number two is capturing decisions. Like, where do I put this? How do I remember what I decided? How do I reinforce the decision I've made? How do I cascade this down? Ideas, tasks, requests, notes. When there's no clear capture system, your brain is on, quote unquote, on all day. And that creates cognitive overload. And it also can create fuzziness. We talked about clarity being really important for decision making. If you don't have a way to refresh yourself, then things get fuzzy. And I just want to digress for a second here. I've said this before, and I know it's probably a common thing that moms say, but my mom always said, like, if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen or it didn't happen. And I mentioned that I used to laugh at her like all kids would, like, oh, that's funny, mom. Like, I can't believe you can't remember it. But now as a mom of three with a healthcare leadership position, it's like, yeah, if I don't have it documented or written down, things can become a little bit hazy, especially if you have people on your team or other leaders pushing back and questioning your decisions. You might forget like exactly why you decided that in the first place. And I'm sure you had a good reason to remember, but once you made that decision, we've got to move on, right? On to the next decision. So you need somewhere to capture your decisions, your ideas, your tasks, so it doesn't get fuzzy for you, so you can lead with confidence. All right, I'm done digressing. Number three is transition decisions. And we kind of talked about this with the where do I put this, but it's the really around the what do I do next. Every transition between meetings, projects, or roles requires a decision unless a system is already guiding you. And this is especially true for leaders who maybe you're, leading, you've got multiple roles or hats, you live in sort of a matrix organization where you've got to do many things, or maybe you oversee multiple sites or you're directing multiple priorities. So briefly, I do want to go into the systems that actually reduce decision fatigue. And this time there are four. There are four systems to help us get practical and reduce our decision fatigue. Now, we're going to go deeper into this in the community this week, like I said. So these are just going to be the highlights, and we'll go deeper in the podcast as well. And if you've been around for a while, you probably know what systems I'm going to mention, but I am working on some fun stuff for this year that I'll be releasing soon to help you. But for now, let's just high level go over these four systems. So number one is a clear, quote unquote, default priority system. This is not a perfect plan. It's just a default plan. And it's something that answers, if nothing else changes today, what matters most. This removes most of the need to constantly redecide. So somewhere where you can document the default plan or the template for the month, the year, the week, or whatever, like, here's what I'm thinking. And that's current state. And then everything else is built off of that. And it can include things like your mission, your values, strategic priorities the org has already set, something that's sort of like, this already exists. It's my framework for deciding where we're going. All right, this is how I decide the priority. Number two would be a single trusted capture system. This is sort of your hub. I've talked about hubs before, like OneNote and such. It's the one place where everything goes. Your tasks, your ideas, your follow-ups, your questions. You can even link out to other apps you use, so long as you have like one-stop shop to go, so that you're not like constantly opening like 100 tabs in your browser, which I'm speaking from experience because I always have a lot open. So this helps leaders trust their capture system when their brain can rest, right? Like, if you can go to one place, everything else feels easy. You're not constantly deciding what you need to open and where you need to look. All right. Number three is standard work for recurring decisions. Leader standard work can exist to answer, what do I do when this happens? Recurring meetings, reviews, plannings, check-ins, these should not require fresh decisions every single time. These should essentially be templated habits that you just repeat sort of on autopilot. And 4, you need a visual systems that show progress to help you reduce your mental load. It's lovely to see your progress, even when your work is hard. So things like Kanban boards, simple lists, or dashboards to reduce the question, am I actually moving things forward? Am I making progress? So just to summarize, the 4 systems that actually reduce decision fatigue are: number 1, a clear default priority system; number 2, a single trusted capture system; number 3, standard work for recurring decisions; and number 4, visual systems that show progress. All right. So again, I just want to share, if you want to talk more about this, or if you're curious or looking for free resources that already have these systems set up, come inside our community. I will link it in the show notes, and you can download those resources or plug into one of the posts this week, get feedback from other leaders. I'm really working to make the community engaging and actually have like really thought-provoking, value-added posts inside of it. So here is a simple practice for this week. You can try it out for yourself. Ask yourself, what decision do I make over and over again? And then ask, what system could make that decision easier or eliminate it altogether? To me, that's stewardship in action. All right, thanks for listening. If this episode had resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a leader who feels mentally tired, even if they can't quite name why. And as always, thank you for being here and thinking about leadership in a more intentional way, being stewards of your own career and success. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you in the next episode.